Amika is here. I'm going to share a little bit because you guys need to know a little bit more about this incredible human being. We had this beautiful conversation a few weeks back, and I just fell in love with her energy and her authenticity. So let me help you to get to know her a little bit better as well. Ambika is on a peace building mission to help people realize their true nature so they can step out of the churning river of thoughts and activity of the mind. Her expertise in the body, mind, and spirit connections shines in her internationally award winning best selling books. She's an expert astrologer, a meditation Jedi, I love that, and a magnificent storyteller. For 21 years, Ambika taught holistic health at the university level. She gives you self serve courses on her website and speaks at conventions as she continues to research and write about the mind and meditation as tools for holistic wellness. And that's just a small snippet, guys. So can't wait to dive in. Ambika, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I got led this morning to start off with my astrological dice. So
Ooh,
I'm going to roll them for all of us.
love it.
And what we've got is Mars in the fifth house in the sign of Cancer. And I love that these came up with what people shared just now, because Mars is a drive, a desire. The fifth house is our creativity and what we love, and also lovers. It relates distinctly to the second chakra of Swadhisthana chakra and water, the endless lake. And we just heard about someone finding crystals in a riverbed. That's an excellent place to find them because water will remove the silt and then crystals will shine through, and maybe we'll catch the glimpse of them. If you've ever walked on the beach, which I hope you have, whether it's a lake, a river beach bed or stream or the ocean, you may have been fooled by things shining, thinking they were metal or even a diamond, because a shell like an abalone, like what I'm wearing around my neck, can shine like that underwater. And so when we wash our crystals in water, we bring back their luminescence. And just like when we wash our bodies, we remove any extra energy on them. But not all crystals can be washed in water. So we've got Mars, the drive, the fifth house, our creativity, and the sign of Cancer, our feeling, the heart chakra. So what better to start with than to talk about a rose quartz? And this may look like a clear quartz. It's very, very pale. And that's something we have to be aware of. You heard Dee talk about the authenticity of crystals, and that's why it's really important to have a reputable place that we are sourcing them from. Now, a quartz crystal can come in many different colors and sizes. And this is one that was dug up out of the earth in Arkansas. Uh, and we can see it's clustered with others. And this is one big old point. Quartz distinctly have six faces. So if you find one that you're wondering, well, is this really real? It could be just from a chunk of crystal, like this particular amethyst, which was then formed and shaped like the way a precious gem is, which is actually a sanding process. We hear the term cutting a stone, but quite often what's going on is it's being ground and then polished. So yes, we can cut a large crystal to get a particular area exposed. So if we're going with a chunk like that one that I just showed you, and we're trying to form it into a faceted gem, then we might need to cut it with another kind of tool. Let's go back to the beginning of my relationship. I always loved playing in the woods and finding things, and I loved the beach. So when I would go, I would look for things. I live on what's called the Treasure Coast, and there are still many, many emeralds and rubies that have never been found from a Spanish shipwreck that was very, very famous. Uh, but the very first crystal that came to me was in a little metaphysical bookstore when I was a teenager, and it was a quartz crystal. And later, I had a jeweler wrap it with some silver, and I wore it around my neck for many, many years. But then I made it into a pendulum with my dad's watch chain. Crystal points are great for pendulums. You don't have to have a point. Anything that's weighted, you could even use a piece of thread or and a paper clip. And I've seen some of the best dowsers do that and move energy with a thread and a paper clip. So what I want you to be really aware of is, yes, you can be fooled. Metaphysical stores may not be having the highest quality, and they may not know where they're sourcing from. So that's why I go to real rock and gem people. And the good news is, I definitely have an amazing gift for you to get a discount forever with the same code, which is my name, and I'll make sure I give it to you so that you have it. And you'll be able to get 30% off, which I think is beyond generous, on anything from one item to many. And this is a friend of mine who, whenever I have a question or I forget the name of something, because I have a vast collection and that can happen. So I do want to make sure that you know where you're sourcing from. It's the same thing when we're looking at food or herbs. We want to know that it's ethically sourced. For instance, does anybody have a salt lamp, a Himalayan salt lamp? Yeah. Do you realize an entire mountain is now gone because of that in the Himalayas? We need to understand, where is this coming from? Where are these stones coming from? When it comes to clear quartz, that's usually the first one everybody's attracted to. And we also want to be careful, because I was scoping around this morning on the web and I was looking for something about quartz. And I saw that someone had written that clear quartz doesn't need to be cleaned. Incredibly wrong. So we have to understand that there's only a small group of crystals that don't need to be cleaned. And I will definitely share that with you. But before I even get into the things that we think of as crystals, who here thinks that a metal is a crystal? Is anybody? Copper, silver, gold?
Gold? Yeah, I don't know.
They
That's
all are, they are all crystals.
ah,
Yeah. So what does crystal mean? Crystal means a mineral that grows in a crystalline formation. There's science here. We need to understand the science, and you'll find as you learn things from me, I will always give you the science. So that clear quartz was the first I got, and I knew about quartz because of radios, transistor radios. This may be before some of your times, but this was a little radio that used a quartz crystal in order to project sound. So we can think of clear quartz like a drum. When you smack it with a vibration, it projects the vibration, and sound travels along surfaces. That's how transistors worked. And then I started learning about, well, what are these quartz crystals when I got that first one? And I wore it around my neck. And I thought of it as protection. But even back then, I didn't realize it needed to be cleaned every once in a while and charged up. We can charge a crystal. So we can wash them in salt water. We could bury them in a bowl of salt. We could bathe them in water, and then we could rest them in the moonlight. Certain crystals, it's not a great idea to put in the sunlight for charging up. You might want to, because Mars is our theme planet for right now from the roll of the dice. But we may not want to do that. For instance, with a citrine, which is in the quartz family, this is a very pale looking one. It probably looks almost clear to you, and they will fade a little bit. This is another citrine, which has a lot of what would be called information on it. with all of these natural shapes in it. This is this is a more rare version of a citrine. Citrines can be all the way to brown, and they're buddies with amethyst. A lot of people don't realize that citrine and amethyst will grow together. And sometimes we will see something called a half and half or a citrametist, or I've seen different names for them. That's another thing, everybody, that back when I first was getting into crystals and starting to teach about them, I noticed that there were stores selling what they were calling red quartz. There's only a few places. Actually, there's one mine that's no longer mined in Colorado that had true red quartz. This one is tied up with a piece of turquoise. That's what a real red quartz looks like. And anything that looks kind of like a pinkish or tinged quartz that's being called red quartz, back in the day, we just called that dirty quartz, because it had iron. Quartz grows where there's a lot of iron. So if we're in places like the Red Rocks in Arizona or in Utah, where there's a lot of very rich iron soil, we will often see quartz crystals growing. And they will grow. Crystals can continue to grow. As a matter of fact, I've got this really interesting one that is called a prophecy stone. This is from in Libya, where these are found. And this is a pseudomorph. So it's actually two crystals growing together. And this has actually continued to grow, and little bits have come off of it. It's very interesting. It has shed since I've had it. Some quartz, not all of them are different. We can see just in the nature of them. This particular quartz came from Russia, and this likely came from Arkansas. I'm not really sure where my first one came from. So how do we clean these if we don't want to soak them? We can use selenite. Selenite, in its truest form, is almost clear. And we heard talk of EMF earlier. If we want to help prevent EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, from harming us, especially from a cell phone, I personally carry a slightly smaller piece like this in my pocket in a little pouch and put it in between me and my cell phone. So that's one of the ways we can help to absorb. This particular piece it's a crystallized gypsum is what selenite is, and this can be called satin spar also. And this one, I actually use this one to kind of tilt my keyboard here on my desk so that it's at a better angle for me, but that way it's also catching some of these frequencies. Quartz can be smoky, and the darker the quartz, the more absorbative of what we would call challenging energy. We could use the word negative, but negative, when I hear the word, to me is receptive. So I like to think of challenging and proactive. So a smoky quartz can have a little bit of a tinge, but then there can be a black quartz that's all the way black. And one of the most rare of the quartz family is green. And this is really hard to come by. This is almost a Coke bottle, kind of a Coca-Cola, old-fashioned Coca-Cola bottle color. All of these quartz need to be cleansed on a regular basis, especially if you're using them for perhaps activating a grid, which I would use a quartz for doing. I like to use this one to activate grids. I use it like a wand, and my entire house is gridded. There's not just a grid in a place, although I do have one. That was actually how I caught Dee's eye to, I showed her a picture, and she just felt, I guess, the energy from that grid. So we can use them like wands, or we can put them on the end of a stick or a vine and create a wand. all of these we have to realize are minerals. They're mineral substances, and they are growing in particular crystal shapes. So far, the two that we've looked at that don't need to be cleansed ever, because they are cleansing, are the citrine. This is the only one from the quartz family that doesn't need to be cleansed. And the selenite. Selenite is a natural cleaner. I wouldn't put selenite in water, though. It will melt. Have I washed a couple pieces over the years? I have. They have survived, but I can see a little bit of erosion. It's just the nature. Selenite comes from deep in the earth, and it's where the ocean once was. So it does have that relationship with water. The other crystal form that doesn't need to be cleansed is kyanite. And kyanite is one of the most amazing crystal forms. And this one's polished into what would be called a palm stone shape. This one I love using if I am doing a session. Maybe I'm reading tarot cards, or in an astrology session, or even before a session where I'm studying a chart. Then I really, really love this particular one. And this is a beautiful specimen of kyanite. I showed you selenite, but you may not have ever seen golden selenite. And I know I did say something about dirty quartz earlier. This is not a dirty selenite. This is actually a golden selenite. And this is one of the newer pieces in my collection. A lot of what I have is used for meditation, for relaxation, for harmonizing. I don't like to think in terms of balancing chakras. I think of harmonizing. I think of everything as music, and we're harmonizing it. This is a very lovely crystal. And if you want to really get to know one, it's best to meditate with one. And we will have that opportunity in just a bit. One more quartz to share with you. Now, I was told by the shop where I got this that this is Auralite 23, and that I have heard discrepancies of this particular crystal in the amethyst family, because I would just call this red-capped amethyst, and we can see the iron deposit on it right there. Many metaphysical stores will tell you that this possesses 23 or even 24 minerals. But when I checked in with my geology experts about that, they said, no, the only crystals known to have multiple different crystalline formations in them had 11 and maybe 14. So I'm not really sure where that's coming from. This particular dark amethyst, the reason why it does have that deep, deep purple is because it came from an area in the Northern Great Lakes area, which has a lot of hematite, a lot of iron-based mineral in the area. And that's why the amethyst from that particular location has a lot of deep purple in it. I'm going to show and tell a few more. Are we okay with me show and telling a few more? I used to take people to Peru to receive healing from Queros, who are the curanderos, or the healers of the high Andes. And a stone very precious to that area is the snake stone. And the little green crystal beads in between are peridot. I had made this necklace for my mother. I had brought the stones back from Peru. And this particular, it's either snake or serpentine, it's called. And this has a really lovely, gentle, motherly kind of vibration to it. Now, I'm sure everybody's seen moonstone. It almost looks like an opal. I've got opal in this bracelet that are the lighter stones. But have you ever seen a black moonstone? So a lot of us are going for those light, clear rainbow type moonstones, which would represent the full moon. But what about the new moon? New moon is the time when we want to really charge up our hopes, our prayers. So A black moonstone is a wonderful type of stone. And then there's labradorite, which kind of looks a little bit like moonstone, has a lot of flash. Some of us are really attracted to that. And opal, which I have a raw piece right here, also in a palm stone shape. And then there is Larimer. Larimer and turquoise are two stones that are really wonderful for the throat chakra. So when we're expressing ourselves, whether it's through speech or we're writing, a Larimer stone is a really interesting one to play with. And these are found in the Dominican Republic. That's where this one, I brought that one back from. One more for my show and tell. This is prehnite. You may have seen polished pieces of prehnite, but this is a raw piece of prehnite. Prehnite is another prophecy stone. You can tell I have a lot of those in my collection because I have been reading tarot cards since I was 7 years old for other people. And I am an astrologer, so I tend to surround myself or attract them. They come as gifts. There was one other we heard about for EMF protection, and I'd like to add a few tidbits to that story, which is shungite. Shungite, this particular one is cut into a Merkaba position or shape, which are interlocking pyramids of 3 sides. And the Merkaba is part of the flower of life. The shungite that is the best is from Russia in the very coldest regions. There are areas in China that are mined. Be careful with it. There are ideas of putting different crystals into water. Even in history, shungite has been used to purify water, but be careful with certain crystals. If you don't know, please contact me and ask me, because if you start finding opposing information on the web, I don't want you to start making elixirs without proper info. And then there are the precious gems, which all of these semi-precious, everything I've shown you is considered semi-precious until we get to this one. This is an emerald, also cut in an obelisk. So this is not a natural formation like that moonstone. And then when it's cut on my 2 pinkies, I have emeralds. Now, why do I wear these emeralds on my pinky? Well, that's because the one pinky relates to Mercury, and this is Mercury's stone. And you can see I have other crystals on other fingers. On my index fingers, I'm wearing yellow sapphires. That's Jupiter's stone. This is Jupiter's finger. On my middle finger on my left hand, I've got a blue sapphire. This is Saturn's stone. The middle finger is Saturn's. Mars relates to coral. I didn't bring my piece of, I have a coral necklace that I didn't bring over, but red coral, the really orangey red coral. The moon's stone crystal out of the precious is a perfect pearl, a perfect pearl. And we've seen black pearls, so we could see the white, beautiful rainbow opalescent pearls as the full moon and the dark, dark black pearls as the new moon. Rahu and Ketu are also represented by crystals, and these are the names of the north node of the moon and the south node of the moon from Jyotisha, which is also called Vedic astrology. And their crystals are very intense. I don't highly recommend just wearing them unless you really know this is a good positive placement in your astrological chart. They can do damage. Rahu, the north node of the moon, is Hessonite garnet, which is a cinnamon colored garnet. It's a beautiful stone. I'm not saying don't wear it, just don't wear it all the time, and be careful putting it on your left pinky. That is the finger that relates to the north node. And then there's Ketu. Ketu is the south node, and a cat's eye. Cat's eyes were super popular when I was a little kid. and they come in a variety of and a long range of color, from almost white with a flash through it to almost deep, deep root beer brown. And then Venus. Venus's stone is the one that is traditionally given as a promise, and it's the diamond. So we can use a clear quartz as a lesser energy for Venus. The belief and perception is that when we're using crystals for gemstones on the hands, the crystal should show through the back. The metal should not cover it, and the crystal should touch the skin. So jewelers won't usually set them that way naturally. You'll have to request it. So all of these are set that way. And the whole idea of wearing them is out in the sunshine, because the sunlight comes through and then activates the finger, the meridian that responds to it, and then we get the charge of it. Also, installing particular gemstones on particular days at particular moments must be determined astrologically. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not saying you can't just go to the store and buy something and wear it. Along with this beautiful piece of abalone are turquoise. Now, turquoise is a really, really soft crystal. So a lot of the turquoise stones we see, we may not realize they are actually powder that is compressed and glued together. These are natural turquoise from a mine in Arizona where I used to live. And there was a famous mine of turquoise in Bisbee, Arizona. And another buddy crystal is malachite. Malachite grows with turquoise. Sometimes we can find some raw pieces like that. They're beautiful earthy stones. And we can use the color coding of the rainbow idea of chakras. Truly, the ancient version of chakras is not a rainbow from red to orange to yellow to green to turquoise to indigo and then to all the colors. That is a different take on the chakras, but we can gear chakra stones to color coding like that. And many people do enjoy it. Do I do that when I'm doing crystal gridding if I'm laying stones on? For instance, as a Reiki master, I might involve crystals in a session. And that can be super powerful if that is a direction you want to go. So I'd like to open it up for some questions now, Deanne.
Thank you so much. I find this so intriguing and fascinating. And I love the connection with astrology, with the crystals. I never made that connection before. So that's just a powerful piece that I really gained. And I wanted to share that with you.
Crystals are measured in a particular system of hardness.
Mm.
So diamonds and the family that are all the sapphires, beryl is super hard. So it is important when you're thinking about, especially if you're going to wear one on your fingers.
Mm.
And then you can see I have some in gold, some in silver.
Mm.
So you might want to think of the compatibility of the metal with you, with the nature of the crystal. There's one more I forgot to introduce you to, and this is a really interesting
Oh.
one. This is actually considered an incredible money magnet, and it's one of the least expensive out there. It's a fossil, and yes, it is a crystal. It's called Orthoceras,
Mm.
and it's the fossil of a squid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we can see even a smaller one because they're in clusters. They are sometimes you'll see huge carvings or polishings of large chunks of this, where there's
Mhm.
many of them present. And it is related in Far Eastern mythology to, and primarily in Hindu mythology, to Kuber. It's called Kuber's stone. And we've probably heard of Lakshmi, right? Lakshmi is the goddess. She has 4 arms, and she's usually got Ganesha, the elephant-headed one, on one side, and maybe Saraswati playing the Veena on the other side, and she's got her hands out with other 2 hands holding lotus flowers, and out of her hands are gold coins being poured. And
Mm.
we can think of Lakshmi as pouring wealth, but
Mm.
that's constant flow. If we want to fill the treasury, that little stone that I just showed you, the squid fossil, is the one you want.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. So Carol has a great question. What if we find that they're unethically sourced, or how do we know if they're unethically sourced?
Ask where they were mined. If they can't
Yeah.
tell you, move on. I mean, that's what I would do. I can only tell you what I would do. There are several, I would say, dealers. There's a shop in Asheville where many of these have come from. When I will travel, for instance, when I was in Peru, I wanted to know, where did these come from? How were they mined? These are questions I ask. So if we just go into a little new age store that's selling crystals and jewelry and wall hangings and things like that, we don't know. Another thing we want to be careful with, especially with the tinted and colored stones, is,
Mm.
are they dyed? You know,
Yeah,
because they will be. A lot of quartz will be dyed to be rose color
right.
or
And so just
citrine to be darker.
so just asking the question, really, I think would probably give you the answer. Has this been dyed? Is this ethically sourced?
We would hope,
Yeah.
but watch their expression, because
Yeah.
if they don't know, then ask who the buyer is and then ask the buyer.
Okay. And if they are unethically sourced, like, is there anything that can be done about that? Like, there's no regulation, is there?
You've already got it. I mean, if you've already got it, just I would say maybe forgiveness. If you find what I'm hearing is, you got this crystal and then later you found out it was unethically sourced. What can you do? You've already got it. You
Mhm.
have to forgive you. You have to forgive how it came to you, you know? Minds do get closed up.
Mm.
But then what if you go to a yard sale and see a massive crystal like, like this one? And I mean, the
Mm.
person who it belonged to, they might have dug it up, you
Yeah,
know? You don't
yeah,
know. I
yeah.
mean, where that one came from, where that quartz crystal came from in Arkansas, that was a place where you could pay a fee and you could go and you could dig and play in the dirt all day long, and everything, you could take boxes out of what you
Wow.
found.
Interesting. Great, thank you.
So an example would be like this one. I don't know if you can see it, but I bought it at a store. I forget what they called it, but it's literally painted, and the paint is like chipping off.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
So, and that was supposed to be like a reputable spot too. So,
Sometimes
Yeah.
they don't know, Amber. Sometimes
yeah,
they
it
don't
are.
know. That's why Kids Rocks is my guy. He's a geologist. I am definitely giving you this. You'll get a link and you use my first name Ambika, 30% off. You cannot beat that. And if you're ever questioning, send him a photo. He's so kind. And
Awesome.
he'll answer your questions. Say, I was told this was this, and just, punctuate everything with Ambika said. I could ask you, his name is Ron, and he just I mean, he loves crystals and stones, and you'll see most of what he's got are raw. The squid stone came from, he calls those squid stones. The orthoceras came from him. He knows where everything's from. He knows the mines. He knows the when, where, and how.
That helps. That's
And then
beautiful.
the shop in Asheville also, but they're very super high end, very, very high end.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Brenda's got a question. Is there a type of salt that is best for cleaning?
Sea salt.
Sea salt. There you
Yes.
go.
And there are different types of sea salt. Sea salt is a crystalline form, right?
Right.
And it melts. So, are you using Irish sea salt, North Atlantic sea salt, Pacific sea salt, Japanese sea salt? But as long as it's sea salt without any kind of filler. So a table salt could have an anti-caking agent in it. That's why we don't want to eat it.
Right.
So we want to know where our salt is being sourced.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
how long?
just a question. what about Himalayan salt?
For cleaning crystals,
Yeah,
I personally would use sea salt.
just sea salt. Okay, thank you.
That, yeah. However, I mean, we could think of the salt flats. There are salt flats in Peru. There are salt flats out in the western part of the United States. I mean, salt is salt, but if you're asking me what I use sea salt.
Yeah, because I know it as Himalayan sea salt, and it's the pink. It's the pink salt.
It's called sea salt. It's from a mountain in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a certain amount of time, like when we're washing them or putting them in salt? Like, are there hours, minutes? What's the timeline until the crystal tells you it's had enough?
uh, it could be, well, another technique a lot of people use is just selenite. And some say that if you touch a crystal to selenite, that's all you need to clear it. I have a huge log of selenite that lives at the foot of my bed. And after I wear crystal jewelry, I lay it on there and until the next time I wear it. If we're cleaning, how long do you like to take a bath?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
like, yeah,
you want to soak in warm water. You don't want it hot. You don't want it icy. Does it feel like the energy is not so clean? Then maybe overnight or 24 hours. And then maybe it's part of a ritual. So you want them to soak for a little bit longer. I would say, how long does it take for you to feel clean in a salt bath?
yeah,
And then just use that, but rinse it off, rinse the salt water off
yeah,
with clean water, dry them nicely, and then that would be a good time to charge them up in the moonlight or the sunlight.
yeah.
But remember, with ones that will fade, like amethyst or citrine, or rose quartz, the quartz can fade. So go easy on direct sunlight with those. Maybe use it like you would with sun gazing, the first hour in the morning, the last hour
Yeah.
before sunset.
Okay. And so really cleansing them with water and salt, we can still cleanse them in the moon and sunlight, but they are more charging. Is that fair to say?
That's how I see it.
Okay.
I don't see moonlight or sunlight as cleaning them because
Uh,
I mean, if they're, that's me. You'll
yeah.
find contradicting information out there. But personally, maybe it's because I'm such a water baby and salt water is just so important to me that nothing feels as clean as a rinse off in some salt water and clean water for
Okay.
me. But then
Yeah.
some people don't want to bathe them in water and they actually will bury them in a bowl of salt or a bucket of
Right.
salt. And
Yeah.
then another, I mean, when we go to the beach, the sand is silica,
Yeah.
so could that charge
Right.
it up? I
Put them
mean,
on put
when you
them.
lie on the beach, don't you feel cleansed?
Yeah.
When you walk barefoot on the beach, especially in the salt water? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a nice place. Take your crystals to the beach with you in a net bag
Yeah.
so I don't find them on my beach
Yeah,
later.
right. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that. Janice is asking, how do you tell the difference between a smoky quartz and citrine? Citrine.
Smoky
Oh,
quartz should look smoky.
okay. She's showing you her too. It looks like she's got a citrine and a smoky. The citrine is
Okay,
light.
so the citrine looks like a smoky citrine.
Yeah.
Yeah, smoky is going to look like it just has a little bit of smoke in it. It's a
Yeah.
better angle. And then
I think the yellow colors.
this end would be smoky, but this is a black quartz.
Yeah. I think it's just really the tint. Yeah. That is, I can see how it can, some of these are tricky to differentiate.
Well, remember they're buddies.
Yeah.
They grow as buddies. So sometimes
Uh,
they're blended.
uh-huh. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, thank you. And Carolina's just confirming no shungite in water. I think that's what you're asking, Carolina.
Um, mm, I I don't recommend it because first of all, we really need to know where it's coming from. If it's raw and it's not polished, I don't think that's a great idea. But was it used as water for purification? It was. Now, when it comes to warding off something we deem as challenging energy, a black tourmaline will do this. It's as if energy will bounce off of it and
Yeah.
back at. But shungite will take the energy and transmute it into positive.
Right.
So
Yeah.
why not, if you want to use the shungite with water, why not just touch it on the outside of the glass?
Ah, okay. Beautiful.
And
Thank
there
you.
there are water bottles that are formed, like I have one here, where there's a chamber inside and there's a crystal there. Now, this is a crystal that was created by Nassim Haramein. And it is riding in a magnetic structure that's holding it.
Interesting. Okay, we got questions about rings here. So Dawn's wondering, she has a lot of labradorite. Which
Mhm.
finger should she wear the labradorite on?
That's up to you. That's not in the, that's not one of the astrological symbolic.
Okay,
So
awesome.
that you can wear other stones. What I was telling you with the fingers has to do with palmistry
Hmm,
and astrology.
right.
So if you see a Jyotisha, which is a Vedic, we call it in the East Vedic astrology, which is an incorrect term. Jyota in Sanskritam, which is Sanskrit, means light, Jyota. And so mind, body, spirit, Jyota is the spirit of that because astrology is the spirit in that formula of mind, body, spirit. Mind being yoga, which is for meditation for the mind, Ayurveda, which is for the body, and Jyotisha, which is for the spirit, the science of light. And
Beautiful.
so I gave you the classification with the fingers and stones, but then we can read about the breastplate of the emperor or of the high priest and priestess. The high priestess and the high priest had an array of gemstones. Amethyst was one of the stones there, but even we don't consider that a precious gem, interestingly
Mm,
enough. But then
yeah.
sapphire, diamond, ruby, rubies, I have a ruby ring with two diamonds that ruby would be for the sun. I think I skipped over that. Ruby is for the sun, everybody.
Oh, interesting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Carol is saying she has garnet as her birthstone, and which finger would be best? Same kind of thing, doesn't matter with the garnet.
Left pinky,
Oh, left pinky. There you go. And smoky quartz, what finger?
not a
Doesn't,
finger. So, okay, so the ring fingers are Venus, and that's where you wear diamonds.
okay. That's important to know. But a smoky quartz, that would be technically diamond too.
So
What is it?
we have to look at the hierarchy. So the precious gems have other crystals that are considered
Ah,
let's think of it like music, like the highest octave would be,
right.
ruby. Ruby is a very rare one, so rare I almost forgot to mention it. And so ruby, diamond, and the beryls, which would be emerald and sapphires.
Ah, okay. Okay, got you. Troy heard that if you poke a hole in a crystal that you actually weaken them energetically, and that's why people will just wrap strings around them. Is that something that you know of or
Um, I have these bracelets made out of on this one we have aquamarine, shungite, uh labradorite, there's a bunch on that. I've got Larimer and opal. Um, am I feeling energy from them? Yeah.
yeah.
So that's you got to go with your belief.
Yeah.
Um, but I do feel that if you are going for the super high end, expensive precious gem, then it should be set in such a way that it's cradled nicely and touching your skin, whether
Yeah.
it's going to be worn near the heart or on the hands.
And certain gems go with certain metals, or does that
No,
mess anything up?
certain metals go with certain types of,
Yes.
so gold is stimulating, silver is cooling. So we can think of gold like the full moon and receiving a lot of sun energy, and silver is cooling like the new moon.
Okay.
And then copper, not everybody can wear copper, but copper is an excellent metal for some astrological signs and types.
Yeah, brilliant. And then I think we're getting close to the end here. Does dye change the properties of the stone? Well,
Absolutely.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amber's wondering if there's a way to prevent copper turning you green. And I,
On your body, if it's turning you green, then it's not compatible with you.
very good. Thank you very much. Dawn's saying she had a tiger's eye pendant that she wore every day. It came off her chain, fell on the floor, and broke. It didn't break the tiger's eye though. So she put it back together, and she's wondering, she got a download to wear it as a ring,
Why not?
right? You got the download, Dawn.
Trust. Can we do a quick little meditation?
Let's do it. Let's get in there.
Did I get all the questions?
I think we got them. All right.
Okay. If you've got more than one crystal nearby, what I ask is that you just pick up whichever one you're drawn to right now. So you're just working with one, and then get into a comfortable position. So even if you want to lie back or you want to lie on the floor, you can. And I want you to first just close your eyes and hold your crystal between your hands, if it's small enough to feel between both palms. And just relax your belly. Ah. And maybe make a little sound, say ah on the exhale. Ah. Ah. And as you're holding this beautiful, precious, frozen light and color, gift of Mother Nature, imagine your connection to the earth as all of a sudden roots begin to grow down from every part of you down into the earth. And you become the earth, cradling the crystal, holding it in your dark, fecund, generative beauty. And imagine that you are going to, as the part of you that is Mother Earth, for part of you is, you're going to gift it to the you that you perceive as you, to be found, whether it was walking along or gazing at many treasures in a shop, or maybe it was a gift that came through another person to you. But as the Mother Earth part of you, charge it up with the secrets that you want the you that you imagine to be you to receive. Charge it up with the healing, and charge it up with the gifts of knowledge. Now, ever so slowly, take that crystal and bring it up to your forehead and touch it to the center of your forehead, in the center line of the eyebrows, in the center line of the nose, in the area of Ajna Chakra, the third eye. And as you inhale, imagine the wisdom coming into you. Just let whatever impressions flash across the dark screen on the inside of the forehead come into awareness. Now take that crystal and touch it down to the lowest part of you that you can reach. It's up to you how far down you want to go. Could be the soles of your feet. It could be the part of you that's sitting, if you're sitting. It could be near your hips or your knees. And imagine the grounding energy connecting you to the earth through your roots that go down, drawing up beauty, love, and positivity. Bring that crystal up to just around the pubic bone. Feeling it on your second chakra. Your creativity and ability to connect with other people one at a time. And now slide it up to the navel, and then just above the navel, or you can keep it right on your belly button. And let that discernment energy that's always trying to figure things out, that helps you digest, let it just relax for a moment. Hearing your own voice inside as if it's mine. Hearing my voice as if it's yours. Say, everything's okay. Just relax. And now slide that crystal up to your heart space, the center of your chest. Feeling the peace and serene energy. And then bring that crystal up to the base of your throat. And imagine that all your words are sweet and kind. And that everything that comes out of your mouth and goes back into your own ears is peace and love. And now bring it back to your third eye. And then up to the crown of your head. Once again, bringing it back to your heart space where we'll rest with it. Saying thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for the knowledge. Thank you for your healing sweetness. And imagine that becoming like a liquid dripping down from the center of the inside of your skull, the very center where your pineal gland is, with great happiness and ojas, the nectar of happiness, filling up a chalice that you now imagine in the center of your chest, and watch as it begins to rain and fill the chalice to overflowing. And that sweet nectar of joy and happiness, of peace and positivity flows down through the golden city at the top of the belly. It flows down, filling the endless lake in between the hips that rocks in tides with every step we take and every movement we make. And it overflows into the earth of the base of you, Muladhara chakra, the root, nourishing back into the earth with great gratitude for being here today, for being here for one more breath, one more moment, one more day. With grace and peace and love. Slowly open your eyes and gaze at your crystal. And notice how the corners of the mouth are turned up into a little smile. Whenever you're ready, you can come back and join us. I'm grateful to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for joining me for this session about crystals.